The next thing is global variables. Now, this is an interesting thing that you can do. That is tasks. Typically, in a production environment, your API developed a certain set of APIs. Okay, you tested the bot with a given set of APIs, but finally, when your testing and everything was done, and you are putting the bot in the production environment, your APIs have changed. So one way is developer exports the bot in the production environment, then opens up the configuration of each and every task and changes the APIs manually. But that will be a very manual process if there is a whole lot of service calls. Okay, the better way is you can store these endpoint configurations in the global variables and use those global variables within your service node. The advantage will be that when there is a change in the API, this endpoint, all you need to do is you go to settings, you go to config settings and make a change in that global variable. So wherever you have used the global variable, the new API will become effective. So click on global variable, click on add global variables, give a name to it, that is something like let's say account API, enter the URL that you want to store. Okay, and if you want to add some notes, something like API to access account details. Okay, so if you want to add that, you can add it. If you want to assign this particular global variable to be used by a group of developers only, you can select the group from here. This group can be of developers, can be created by the admin of the platform. As of now, I'm not assigning it to any group, so I click on save to save this configuration. So now you can see the global variable has been defined. How do we use this particular global variable? So I come to the bot tasks and I come to the configuration of that particular service node where I have used this particular variable. Okay, sorry, I have used this particular API call. So now we make a change here in the API configuration and I say something like this. I open double curly braces, we say env dot. The moment you say env dot, the name of the global variable becomes available. Okay, so env dot, the name of the global variable. So that will replace that particular API call and that URL, and along with that, I want to pass the account ID. So if you come to test request, you can see this particular variable's content has been replaced. And now if I pass in any value and I click on test over here, you will see the call takes place using this particular URL. Okay. The advantage of this approach is, now let's say there were multiple tasks where you have used the same URL. So you replace all of those hard-coded URLs with the global variable. Now, tomorrow, when you are exporting the bot to the production environment, and if your URL changes, all you need to do is come to config settings, and from config settings, global variables, you can come and edit the content of this one. So click on edit over here, and you can just type in the value over here, the new API over here, and save it. So in whichever service node this particular global variable is used, internally it will now start using the new URL that you have put. Okay, so that is the advantage that you have. The other thing that happens with global variables is when you are exporting the spot. Okay, so let's export the spot. And you will see the config file, which is a part of the export folder. Okay, so if we go in and expand this particular, if we extract the content of this zip folder, you will see there is a config file. You can see the custom script file is also added, and there is a config file. If I open this file, you get to see the global variable over here. So before you import this bot into a new environment, new server, or maybe you are creating a new bot out of this export copy, and you want to change the API, you can also open this particular config file, and there under environmental variables, you will get to see your APIs. You can change these APIs over here as well. Okay, so replace the URL with the new URL, save the config file, and then when you are importing the bot, the new configuration will come into place, and the variables will be created with the new URL that you have provided. Okay, so that is the advantage that you have. Uh, that is the advantage that you have when you are going in for the global variables. Next option that you have over here is for content variables, and these are typically for the messages and all that you have stored. Why should we go in for a content variable is to make the bot multilingual. We have seen that once we enable a new language, we have to go to each of those messages to the prompts and change those manually into the language which we want to enable. Okay, so in this situation, if we want to have an easier way of doing that, so for every prompt, for every message which you are using in your bot, instead of hard coding those messages and prompts, you can create a content variable, and you can use that particular variable in your message nodes and in your entity nodes. When you are enabling another language, instead of going into the dialog task configuration and making the changes, you can make the changes in the content variable. So wherever those content variables are used, that particular message, the new message in the new language, will become effective. Okay, so click on add content variable. Give a name to your variable. Let's say count name prompt, and a value of that variable. Click on save. So that creates a content variable like this. But how do you use that content variable? You come to the bot tasks, go to the entity node or message node where you can use these messages and prompts. Okay, and instead of hard coding your prompt over here, what you can do is you can use that particular the variable that has been created. So the way to do that is content dot the name of the variable. Okay, so now if I change this particular message in the German language, something like this, the advantage is just open your the things, the variables. So right now we are in the English language. Okay, I go to content variables over here, and I change the language. I go to the German language. Okay, so once you are in the German language, you can change the content of that particular variable in German language. So we come to config settings, and I go back to content variables. Okay, and we can see the variable over here. I click on edit, and I change this to the German language. We click on save. Okay, So now depending on the language, so you can see in the German language, this is the account name prompt. If you go to the English language, okay, you will see that variable will show you the content in the English language. So when you're talking to the bot, okay, so let's go in for the open account task. One second. Oh, I didn't change it over there. One second. Let me just check out the configuration. It was not saved actually, my prompt. So just make sure that you get to see this. It is using that particular listing. So that you have to just check out, so that if the variable is not used, then it comes back with the static message that has been stored within that particular prompt. Yeah. So all these things actually needs to be done before you can replicate the bot in the new language, because after you have done it and then you are making a change in the configuration of an existing node, that doesn't get replicated in the new language. So remember to do that and then only replicate the bot. Okay, so you can see the message coming up in that particular language, and if I change back to the English language, you will get to see the message coming up in the English language. How can you use this? If there is a possibility that your bot is going to be multilingual, it is always advisable that if you don't want to manually go and make changes in the individual prompts and messages after you have enabled the new language, what you can do is you can define all those prompts and messages in content variables, so that if a new language is enabled, select that language, go to settings, go to bot config settings, from there select content variables, and just make a change in those content variables over here in the new language that has been enabled. Okay, so individually you don't need to go into each of the tasks and make the changes in the prompts and the messages. So that is the advantage that you have with global variables and content variables. Any questions on this?
Yeah, Jayanti,
Yeah.
this is Gunasiri. I have a
Yeah, please.
question. So if you not done the content variable and global variable effectively, let's say you do a development only considering English,
Mm-hmm.
um, but later you want to do a same bot configure for example, Spanish. Is there any straightforward way, or you have to redo everything and define all the content variable? Is there any way that you can translate the intent and use the bot in Spanish? Is there any other way?
Yeah, so that was, if you want to do it in that way, you can go to the language management part. And when you are enabling a language, that is what I was showing you all over here, you can download the JSON file. Okay, so if you are enabling in Spanish, you have not defined content variables and all. Global variables are something that is for the API endpoint. It is irrespective of the language. Okay, so language comes into issue for the messages, prompts, for KG, for the NLP training. Okay, so those are the places where it matters. So instead of replicating the bot from the default language and then manually changing, you can download the JSON file. So right now I had shown you the downloaded version of the JSON file, which contains all your prompts and messages, your KG questions, your NLP training, everything is there in that JSON file. Okay, make changes in that JSON file. Okay, and then import that file back. Once you import that file back, you will get to see this enable button coming up over here, and you click on enable. A new version of the bot will be enabled in that language with all the messages and everything that you have given within that particular JSON file. Okay, so that approach you can take it. Or if there from the starting you know that there is a possibility of other languages, you have not started building your bot, but there is a possibility that that bot might turn into a multilingual bot. In that case, using content variables is a good approach. So you just enable the bot, and then you go to the content variable section and change the prompts and the messages of the entity nodes and all. Okay, but of course if it is already built and you are enabling a new language, you can download the JSON file, make changes in that JSON file and upload that file back and enable that language. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay.
Okay.